Hi, this is Doug Ferreira, Senior Advisor for Challenger's Effortless Experience program, and very excited to be here with you today to discuss coaching to different communication styles, a topic that I'm incredibly passionate about. Now, before we get in and talk specifically about communication styles, I just want to make sure that we're all on board and in agreement on the importance of coaching. Is now a good time for us to do coaching? Absolutely. It's always a great time for us to do good coaching. And the reason is that, if you think about our roles, whether we are in a leadership role, whether we're a coach or a manager, our goal is to help our teams achieve their goals and objectives, whether they're individual or organizational in nature. And in order to achieve our objectives, we're going to have to get the best performance out of each of our folks. And the way to do that, based on research, the number one way to improve performance is actually through highly effective coaching. So, research supports this. And I think a lot of times we fall into the trap of thinking, oh, I need to send my people to training and they'll get better if I just train them better. And yes, training is important. It's valuable. It's impactful. But at the end of the day, if I want to drive performance improvement, I'm going to get that biggest impact from effective coaching. Now, you'll notice the second column here around staff retention, right? So there are some things that we can do to retain our people, efforts that will also improve performance. Well, here's the good news, kind of the hidden benefit, if you will, of coaching is that one of the best ways to impact staff retention is also through effective coaching. And you know what? If you think about it, this makes sense. You've probably heard that adage, people don't leave companies, they leave managers. I know me personally, I have stayed in jobs. I even moved across the country because I had a really effective manager who was coaching me, helping me develop, helping me become better at what I do, improve my skills. And so I think just a good reminder that it's always a good time for us to engage in really strong, effective coaching. Now let's put coaching into a little bit of a framework, and so that we have some context in which we can think about flexing our communication styles. So this is our integrated coaching framework, a very simple yet powerful framework that you can use. So step number one in our framework, research and understand development opportunities. What we mean by this is taking some time to assess, analyze based on observations, based on feedback, based on discussions with the person that I'm going to be coaching, as well as their peers, their customers. Taking all of that and doing some analysis to try and identify where are the biggest development opportunities that this individual has. Now, I don't want to just dive right into coaching to those development opportunities. I actually want to engage in what we call a scheduled coaching conversation. So that brings us to step number two. And the purpose of step number two in our framework is to set expectations. Explain our observations in this scheduled coaching session. This is our chance to get alignment between coach and coachee. We often call this session the handshake on development. This is when coach and coachee can agree on the skills that we are going to focus on and develop in our coaching conversations. And then the third step is to engage in integrated coaching. So think of this as in the moment, on the job, ad hoc training conversations. These could be done while sitting next to someone, while they're making phone calls with customers and carving out time to have coaching conversations in between. It could be going out on visits with the person that you're coaching and watching them in action so that you can observe them in action. These also could be in the moment conversations that happen throughout the business day. Someone walks up to you and says, "Hey, coach," or "Hey, boss, I've got a problem. I've got a question. I need some help." That may very well be an opportunity for you to engage in some integrated coaching right there in the moment on the spot. So engaging in integrated coaching. So you'll notice that we have flexing communication styles at the center of this framework. And that's because we believe that this is an always on skill. So whether I'm doing that research and trying to understand the development opportunities, doing observation, whether I'm having scheduled coaching conversations or even in the moment integrated coaching conversations, I should always be thinking about the communication style of this person that I'm coaching and making sure that I'm flexing my communication style so that my coaching conversation resonates with this individual. We know that one of the most important things we can do from the coachee's perspective is make the conversation about the coachee, make it about them. We don't want one size fits all coaching. We want highly, customized, tailored coaching. And the best way to do that is to flex our communication styles. So let's walk through a communication style framework that you can use to do that flexing. So I'm going to pull up 4 columns here, and you'll notice a letter at the top of each column, and I'll bring you back to what those letters represent here in just a moment or two. But I want you to look at all of the words on the screen here. And think about which words most resonate with you when you think about your communication style. Now, you'll notice the title of this slide is How Do Others Perceive You? So I think it's important to think about if I were to ask someone else how they would describe your communication style or which of these words they would think of when they thought of you, what would they say? I think it's oftentimes more important to hear from others about your communication style than just thinking about it on your own. So if I look at these 4 lists of words, I see words like outgoing, enthusiastic, playful. I can be a little playful, spontaneous, loyal, cooperative, supportive, sensitive, patient, reliable. There's definitely some words on here that people would not use to describe me at all if they know me. Detail oriented, serious, methodical, uh, decisive, efficient, right? Those are words that someone would not use to describe me. I think if people were forced to pick one column to describe me, and I actually would agree with this, it would be column A. So loyal, cooperative, supportive, sensitive, patient, and reliable. Probably the singular column that best describes me. So let's walk through the framework that we use, the model that we use, so that we can see where those lists of words correlate to. So the first thing we want to do is think about and listen for, ask versus tell. Do they tend to communicate with questions or do they tend to communicate with statements? This might be as simple as the difference between could you give me a hand? Question, ask, or give me a hand, tell, statement, right? And so I start listening for that ask versus tell and helps me identify where on this spectrum someone is from a communication perspective. Now, there's another axis that I want to look at, which is relationship versus task. So does someone tend to focus on people, relationships, feelings, emotions, or do they tend to focus on tasks, data, steps, process, etc.? And so again, when you start to listen to how people communicate, you can start to pick up on these clues. So if I put these 2 axes together, I come up with 4 different quadrants. So the first quadrant is this upper left quadrant. This is the ask and relationship quadrant. This profile is called the amiable. And for those of you who identified with list A on our previous screen, you would be identifying with the amiable communication style. They like to collaborate. We're consensus builders. We like to talk things through, make sure everyone is on board. Everyone's thoughts and ideas have been considered, right? So amiables, ask and relationship oriented. Now, our lower left quadrant is the ask and task quadrant. This profile is called our analytics. So for those of you who identified with column C on our previous slide, you're identifying with the analytic communication style, detail oriented. They like to think about things, process things, analyze things, understand the details, understand the why and the how behind things. Now, in our upper right-hand quadrant, we have the profile called expressives. These are our tell and relationship folks. They're outgoing, persuasive, playful, spontaneous. They like to, ideate. They like to think outside of the box, get creative, use metaphors and ideas and so forth. And they like to discuss those ideas with other people. And then we have our lower right-hand quadrant, our drivers. These are folks that are, efficient. They like to get straight to the task, use fewer words, maybe speak in bullets. They're action-oriented, goal-oriented. So they keep us focused on what we're trying to accomplish. They keep their eyes on the prize, if you will. So one of the things that you can do to think about, these different communication styles is think about where you might plot yourself across these two axes. So I'm going to plot myself just as an example. So ask versus tell, I would say I'm probably about right here. A little bit left of center, a little bit more ask-oriented versus tell-oriented. Now, if I were to plot myself on the relationship versus task axis, I would put myself way up here on the relationship side. So if I put these two things together and I were to plot myself on this model, that's why I would consider myself to be an amiable. However, my secondary communication style is expressive. As a matter of fact, one of the things I've learned about myself is that over time, as the day progresses, I actually migrate over to this expressive quadrant. Towards the end of the day, I get very spontaneous, very playful. So I become more and more expressive as the day goes by. Now, for me, I don't do analytic and driver really easily. I have to think about it. I have to be very cognizant, very aware if I'm going to be dealing with an analytic or a driver. If I'm going to be going into a meeting with a driver or having a coaching conversation with a driver, I have to really think about how am I going to be efficient? How am I going to be to the point? How am I going to make things go faster? Same if I'm dealing with an analytic. I really have to, be self-conscious and aware, make sure that I'm, really thinking about how I'm going to put things into a linear process, make sure that, they are laid out in the right order, that I've got details to support what I'm going to be talking about. So let's talk a little bit about that specifically with regards to coaching conversations and some of the things I should, consider doing. So if you're going to be coaching an amiable, you want to make sure that you are inviting their opinion, bringing them in, make sure it's collaborative. You'll notice this fourth bullet under the remember to section, it says reward with private recognition. These are not the folks who want public fanfare, public recognition, making a scene, if you will, right? They just want to know that they're doing a good job. So that private recognition means a lot to them. If I'm going to be teaching, I can teach with stories, maybe hypothetical stories, use personal experiences, talk about how this impacts individuals. Now, certainly one thing we ought to be thinking about is sometimes we have coaching conversations with folks who are under stress. So you'll notice that here, our stress response for amiables is that they will tend to acquiesce. If you think about what acquiesce means, that means that they're going to give in, even though inwardly they may not necessarily agree. So they'll comply without necessarily buying in. So I just really want to be careful with that. And so the ideal coach reaction is to ask questions. Let's make sure that they're on board. Let's solicit thoughts and ideas on how we're going to accomplish what we've agreed to accomplish, just to make sure that they're fully bought in. So those are just some ideas on adjusting to amiables. Let's talk a little bit about adjusting to analytics. So you'll, in the upper left-hand part of our screen here, it says, don't interrupt. These folks like to process things. They like to think things through. So I need to slow down a little bit, use silence a little bit more to allow them to analyze, to think, to process, to think about ideas and how they feel about these things. Now you'll notice it says to reward with increased responsibility. This doesn't mean to reward with more work. It means to reward with increased responsibility. Now they can take ownership of things, and that makes them feel good. From a teaching perspective, I want to teach with facts and reasoning, right? Why is this important? Let's give them an opportunity to review things independently, to think things through, to come up with some of their own thoughts and ideas. Now, you'll notice the stress response here is avoid. So, analytics, if you think about it, this really makes sense because what's most important to an analytic is that they make a well thought out, rational decision. If they're under stress and things are getting emotional, they risk not making a rational decision. So they will probably say, you know what, let's come back to this later. And so we just have to be on the lookout for, that indecisiveness turning into evasion, turning into avoidance. And so just, give them, if you look at the lower right-hand corner, the best way to react to that is to empower them. Set some clear deadlines, set some goals, some milestones that they can attain in small increments, give them the details and just allow them to kind of take ownership of that within those timelines, those time frames, within those milestones. All right, so let's talk a little bit about coaching to drivers. These folks, they're candid. They like to get right to things. They like to be efficient. So I want to be directly addressing issues. I want to, move at a quicker pace. Get to the point a little bit more quickly. You'll notice here that we need to reward them with tangible incentives, right? Something they can touch or feel or put on their wall. Some type of a tangible award. And we want to teach them with examples. It's very efficient. Here's what good looks like, right? Here's what success looks like. Here's the goal. This is the desired outcome. Boom, go at it. Go make that happen. Now you'll notice that in times of stress, these folks will go into dictate mode. They become very autocratic, right? This means that they're going to tell you how this is going to go. So, which could come across as pushy and intimidating. So you want to be on the lookout for that. And the ideal coach reaction is to kind of turn into an advisor. Hey, look, we need to set a deadline. We have a desired goal and outcome. We need to get there. And so I'm going to make sure that you have the authority and the autonomy to get there, but that doesn't mean that we're not going to have guidelines that we have to set in order for us to attain those objectives. And then let's talk a little bit about adjusting to expressives. So this is when, I still want to have a fast pace, but an informal tone, make it personal, talk in big pictures, maybe even use examples or metaphors. You'll notice that they, love public applause or recognition, so I can reward them with that. In terms of teaching, I want to get them involved, right? So a role play, let's practice, let's do this together. Let's get a feel for how this is going to look or come out. This just gives them a chance to kind of perform and be involved in that learning. That's how we want to teach the expressive, is with role plays. Now notice their stress response. They go into attack mode, right? And by the way, that attack could get personal. So they might become judgmental. They might become a little bit aggressive. You know what? I'm sick and tired of this. You do this to me every single time. Let me tell you how I feel. So what we want to do is just kind of, take ourselves out of the discussion, right? Depersonalize things a little bit. Don't take things personal, and just maintain that informal discussion. Keep it collaborative. So these are things I should be thinking about in terms of adjusting to different communication styles. So I think what you'll find is, as you're engaging in coaching conversations, if you make these adjustments, it just makes people more comfortable, right? It's so that message, that conversation can resonate with them and really hit home. And that's how you can get the biggest impact on performance. Now, I know that many of us have to do some coaching in virtual environments. And so, just a couple of things to think about in terms of coaching in a virtual environment. One is, I think it's even more important for us to focus on focusing. Provide them with your undivided attention. There's nothing that says that you can't put your cell phone on airplane mode, even though you're not on an airplane. Right? It's okay to turn it off, not be distracted. It's okay to close down your email. Maybe even shut down your computer if you're going to be talking over your cell phone or a tablet. Just eliminate as many distractions as you possibly can, because in this virtual environment, we're losing body language. We're losing some of our communication because, as you know, most communication is nonverbal, right? And so I could potentially be losing quite a bit of that communication. And so I just want to make sure that, boy, we are really engaged. And that they understand that this is really important to us as a coach. So give them your undivided attention. Uh, we've been talking a lot about, flexing our communication styles. And I think we just have to think about, in a virtual environment, are there some levers I have to pull, some things I have to do more of? Can I get on video, especially with our amiables and our expressives, so that we can see each other's faces and we can, see that body language and really make eye contact and connect with people. So, just thinking about, in a virtual environment, what are some of the adjustments that I need to make? And then I think, lastly is, just in this virtual environment, just promoting team morale, team communication, creating a coaching culture where everybody can learn from each other, share ideas, so maybe creating a buddy system, more ways for them to share with each other and learn from each other, share best practices, ideas. By the way, create an environment where it's okay to be a little vulnerable. Hey, I did something today. It didn't work as well as I would have liked. I would love some ideas on how I could have done a little bit better. Just creating that culture, that environment is going to be incredibly impactful, especially in this virtual world in which we are living today. So I really enjoyed our discussion today. Just a couple of key takeaways that I want to leave you with. One, just a reminder, now is a great time for coaching. Quite honestly, always is a great time for coaching. And the reason is that coaching is the number one driver of performance improvement. If you want to get the most out of each individual on your team, coaching is a great way to achieve that. One of the best ways that we can make sure that our coaching has full impact is to connect with them as individuals. It's one of the things that they really want from us. And one of the ways I can do that is by flexing my communication style as I'm engaging in coaching conversations with them. Really understanding the language that they prefer to use, the pace, how I can most effectively communicate with them. So think about those four different communication styles. Do that exercise with each individual on your team. Do it as a team so that everybody understands each individual's communication styles, and you can make those adjustments. No doubt in my mind, when you do that, you will see an improvement in your coaching outcomes, and your coaching conversations will be more productive, more effective. You'll feel great about them. So, hey, best of luck to you out there. Really enjoyed our conversation. I would love to take questions from anybody. So there's a variety of different ways that you can ask questions. You can ask questions via the chat window, or just raise your hand and feel free to ask away. So thank you again very much, and look forward to our conversation.